Hi again, everyone. I'm in public at a park, and I will probably be looking over my shoulder to see if anyone is behind me, because I feel slightly weird about, talking into a video in public, as I think a lot of people do. So I might pause this and come back to it if people are like walking by and I don't, want to be it distracts me from being in the flow. But one thing I wanted to say, so there is this thing that's just kind of coming through my head. I lately have been stepping more into embracing my relationship with God and titling it, labeling it, and addressing my faith. And, I'm Jewish. I was born, raised Jewish, not Orthodox or anything. But I have always kind of loved religion, and I've never experienced any religious trauma, and I've had a positive experience with religion. I've always found connection points between my soul, my experience, and like Jewish teachings, for example, especially, Kabbalah, and I'm going to do my best to just stay focused, even if people are riding by, because I really want to get over this. But one thing that, I wanted to talk about was just commitment and faith, especially regarding like religious belief or practice. I, at my core, I love God, and I love religion, and I love devotion, and I love spiritual discipline. And the way that I see the world, the way that I view the world, is very parallel and in line with, my understanding, my concept of religion, what I've learned so far. And I'm finding that when I make videos like this, or when I talk about faith, when I talk about God and the glory of God or whatever, part of my head gets like kind of tripped up, because I am concerned about being judged. I'm concerned about, Anyway, one of the things that, happens is that I get self-conscious about owning, expressing how I feel in the context of using like faith-based, religious-based language, because the things that I experience, the things that I'm talking about, they go beyond religion, beyond language. But I find that I wonder if I'm just tripping myself out by not, committing to speaking the language of my Jewish faith, for example, because, I'm like, I want to be seen it's like there's a part of me that's trying to preserve this desire to be seen as someone who understands, the experiences that I talk about beyond the lens of, religion and language, but more so that I find, my religion and the language of it to be a almost perfect container for the phenomenon that occurs, that I experience. And I know that so many people are averse to, the word God, and, maybe they have different associations with the word God or the word religion. And by the way, I would recommend, if you're caught up on definitions of words, look into the etymology of them to understand what they actually mean, so you can be empowered when you speak and like really know what you're saying. But I love sharing, spiritual, emotional, soulful, encouragement and messages that I receive through my own spirit that, help me move through life. And I know in my heart that it is useful to share these things, because even if one person sees them after I die, I've thought about this before, because my channel's not popular right now, and my videos comparatively to other channels are less visible, but I do have faith that they're going to reach whoever they need to reach in the right time. Well, where was I going with that? I don't exactly know where I was going with that, but my point with this is that I feel like there's something that I'm learning or noticing about myself, and it's that I feel like I am reserved to really embody more of who I am, and I feel like a way to do that is, like, for me, is embracing my religion and embracing, the G word, God. And yeah, I think that on the other side of like our fears of being judged or misunderstood or feeling disconnected, because that is really a big driver. It's like it's a hard fear that I come up against, is this fear of being misunderstood or like losing out on connection. And it's funny because it's not even possible. Like, and what am I trying to say? Like, if I am being myself, if I am connected, if I am speaking from my soul, then I'm not missing anything. I'm plugged in. I'm plugged in to God. I'm plugged in to my soul. I'm clear inside, and I'm sharing that. I'm opening it up. It's like a book. It's like the words, the stories on the book is already written, but it's like you can't, if you want to read that story but you don't speak the language it's written in, you get a translation, and I feel like I'm kind of coming to a point where I'm like, I'm on the cusp of embracing my unique brand of leadership and spirituality and, communication with my deepest inner world, and I think what's happening is there's this process of discovering more integrity. And I'm asking this question: how can I be in integrity with my soul and with the things that I receive and that I feel in my spirit? And how can I honor that while also, holding space for the parts of myself that are self-conscious and fear being judged, because those are massive freaking like phantoms that follow, I think, everybody around. But I want to kind of kick them away by facing these fears and stepping fully into my truth and speaking the things that are here and real and breathing life. Speaking is like breathing. And I think it's a disservice to, hold ourselves back from acknowledging and expressing the fullness of the truths inside of us. And it is terrifying, it is scary, because it comes right up against a lot of primordial fears that are in place to essentially keep us from dying. You know, they're like old codes, old programs at one point standing out, or, you know, even speaking your truth could have put you at risk for being like exiled from your tribe. So it's scary, you know, but one step at a time. You know, we're trying, we're falling, we're tripping, and if you're on this path as well, then you understand how vulnerable it feels to be open and to shine in an unfamiliar place. It is scary. It's very scary. You know, and maybe there are parts of you that have not necessarily really fit completely in, you know, circles or communities or spaces that you used to spend, you know, most of your time in. I think that's a squirrel. So yeah, it can be, kind of intimidating to, you know, really own your voice, own your truth, and stand out amidst groups of people, and, you know, risk like losing your, losing your social standing, you know, risk changing your social image. And, you know, from personal experience, I'm kind of proud of myself because this is so freaking uncomfortable, and I just walk past a bunch of people. But the thing is, it's like people don't care. People really don't really care what you're doing. They're all just doing their own things. And it's like, I could be, you know, talking on the phone or FaceTiming someone, but I'm just making a video, and, you know, it feels uncomfortable. But it's like, for the most part, if you feel self-conscious in public, people don't care. People don't care about what you're doing. They're all wrapped up in their own. It's like, as self-conscious as I feel is how self-conscious other people feel, so why do I even need to worry about anything? You know what I mean? So yeah, just a reminder. And like nothing dangerous is happening as a result of me just talking into a camera. In other words, doing the thing that I'm, you know, freaked out to do, or I feel uncomfortable doing, but it's like here, and it's real, and it's important. But anyway, yeah, I forgot where I was, you know, going with all this. But just in general, like, yeah, one step at a time, one action at a time, and yeah. Also, I will say that when I make these videos, usually, I like to kind of share and be present with what I'm going through in the moment. And so the things that I'm speaking, the wisdom that I'm speaking, it's kind of just me saying encouraging things to myself out loud while I go through, you know, these changes that I don't quite see the other side of yet, or see myself on the other side of quite yet. You know, and I've been stepping out into the world more as, like, you know, a intuitive guide sort of, you know, character, and I kind of am hesitant to even label myself as that or as anything in particular. I'm just here, and I'm just existing, and I'm doing what feels natural, and that's the most important part, more so than clinging to any identity. And sure, you know, identities can fit and feel great and look great at different points in our lives, but it doesn't mean that we're tied down to being that way. And so as above, so below, you know? It's like some times in life you might be, you know, living one kind of lifestyle and it will be benefiting you. For example, you know, being vegan versus being an omnivore or a carnivore. It's like sometimes being vegan is necessary and it's helpful and useful and supportive for well-being, and sometimes being omnivorous is the same. These little gnats, they call them no-see-ums because they're invisible, but they get you, and it's jarring. But yeah, you know, sometimes identity is it's not necessarily always a fixed thing. It's a fluid thing. And I feel like as long as we have, well, I think identity is actually should be rooted in things that are eternal and solid and reliable, because, you know, on the surface, things are changing all the time. You know, like, what does my identity become after I die? Is there even a point? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, what is identity? What is it? But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. And I'm also feeling, again, kind of scattered because I'm not used to, like, making videos in public like this, and it just feels weird. But there's a lot that I want to say. But yeah, I popped on here again to just say that, like, the reason I'm sharing these things right now is because even though I'm not yet on the other side of, you know, having been practiced and feeling like I'm confidently stepping out into these aspects of myself for a while, like, I'm going through it, right? I'm in the midst of it right now, and I just want to extend my hand for anyone who is also in the midst of anything similar, you know, like owning any aspect of your identity and your soulful expression, especially if it, you know, seems contradictory or counter to the cultures that you were steeped in before, you know. And I've found myself in a lot of cultures with a lot of friends who, you know, I have plenty in common with, and I share plenty with them, but there are parts of me that don't really get to breathe too much in different spaces, depending on what they are. Like, I consider myself a deeply religious, spiritual person, but it's not very frequently that I find I'm having conversations or experiences with other people who are, you know, in similar circles as me about those things. Like, yes, it happens, but I think not as frequently as I experience it or crave it or really want it or practice it or anything. It's such a fundamental part of my life, and there are so many other things that are fundamental parts of my life rather. So, you know, finding harmony between embracing and sharing communally with these parts of myself, the composition of my being, it's been a process, you know. And I have my YouTube where I kind of vent these spiritual, more kind of generalized as like woo-woo things, you know, like, well, I'm doing a reading or I'm sharing insights or whatever it is, you know. I don't do this in public. I don't really do this with people usually. I mean, except for when I used to do readings, but yeah, it's different. So anyway, yeah, so I think it's just like about finding, or just, you know, embracing, making room for these parts as they arise. It's like we don't need to have life built perfectly, you know, perfectly right now. Life is so fluid, and so we should just give ourselves, or at least I want this to be a reminder that we should give ourselves permission to embrace how we are, who we are, and things like this. So I'm gonna end this now, but